All right, the next thing you're going to do today is comparing your graphs to your equations. You're going to look to see, you're going to answer some questions like which one has the greater slope, which one has the greater y-intercept, and which one has the greater y value at a certain x value. Okay, so this is once again something that you might be able to do without watching this video, but I would recommend you do watch this, especially about the y value based on the x value portion of it. Okay, so first let's just talk about how to find these things from an equation and from a graph. So from an equation, remember that we have our equation in slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So your slope, recall, is m. So whatever number is in front of x is your slope. Your y-intercept is b, whatever your constant is. So whatever number you have at the end, make sure you're paying attention to your signs if it says plus or minus. And then the last part, finding the y value based on the x value. When you have an equation, you plug the x value in. And then solve for x. Solve for y. Solve for y. Plug your x value in and solve for y. Okay, into the equation that was given to you. In a second, we'll see an example of what that looks like all the way through. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to look at a graph and find these pieces of information. So first of all, with a graph, you're going to be given some type of a graph. You know, maybe your line looks like this. Your slope, you need to count using your rise over your run. And remember to reduce the fraction if possible. You need to make sure you're picking 2 points that are on the line when you count your rise over your run. Your y-intercept should be a pretty easy one. It's the point on the y-axis. And then the last part, the y value based on the x value. So you're going to go to x, go to that x value, and then find the y value on the graph. And like I said, we'll look at an example that'll make a little bit more sense when we go through an example together. But basically, if I come up to this graph, if I tell you that x is 2, I'm going to go to wherever x is 2, and I'm going to look and I'm going to see what is that y value. Okay, so we'll see an example of that here in a second. So our first example is we're going to look at an equation and go through these couple of things. So using this equation, it says use the equation y equals negative 2x plus 3. We're going to answer the following questions. So what is the y-intercept? Well, remember that the y-intercept is the number that is by itself. It's the constant. It's not attached to x. Your y-intercept, remember, it's mx plus b. B is your y-intercept. So our y-intercept is 3. What is the slope? Remember, slope is the number, your coefficient that's in front of x. It is m. In our case, it is negative 2. And then the last one, what is the y value when x equals 4? So you come back up here and it says plug the x value in and then solve for y. So we're going to do y equals negative 2 times, and what is x? X equals 4 plus 3. So we just plugged our x value in. We plugged in our 4. And then you get a calculator, you get, use your head, whatever you are able to do. Once you've gotten that, you hopefully saw that y equals negative 5. Okay? Now our next example, we're going to use our graph to answer these same questions just using the graph. Okay? So what is the y-intercept? Remember, the y-intercept of a graph is on the y-axis. So your y-axis is here. We're going to look, and here's our y-intercept. It is at 4. So y-intercept is 4. to find your slope, you need to pick 2 points that are on your graph and count your rise over your run. So remember, you need to pick points like this point right here, not this random point hanging out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so I can pick that one, and I already knew where my y-intercept was. I can pick both of those. And I'm going to count my rise over my run. Pay attention to your directions. Okay, this is rising up, which is positive, and running right, which is positive. Okay. If you count your rise, it is 4. You count your run, it is 2. So your rise over your run is 4 over 2. But you want to reduce that if it's possible. And in this case, it is 4 divided by 2 gives you your slope is 2. All right, the last part asks you, what is the y value when x equals 6? Oh, sorry, negative 6. Pay attention, that is a negative 6 there. So we're going to go to, on the x-axis, we're going to go to where x equals negative 6, which is right here. And then we're going to go and find on the graph, where does our graph match, which is right here. What is the y value at that point? It is negative 8. And that's simply how you do that. All right, now we're going to go to see a little bit more of what your IXL looks like. It's going to use those pieces of information to compare them. So in this example, you're going to use the equation 3x minus 5 and this graph to compare the following. So we're going to see which one has the larger slope. So we can look at both of them and figure out what is the slope. So remember, your slope in an equation is m. So in this one and your first one, it's 3. And if we come over here, we're going to kind of rise over our run. So pick 2 points. I've got a point right here. I've got a point right here. I rise up and run right, which is both positive. I go up 2 and over 1. So rise over run. 2 divided by 1 reduces to 2. So the question is, which one is larger? Well, hopefully you pretty easily answer that question that it is 3. So we would say A. Which has the larger one? A has the larger slope. All right, y-intercept should be a relatively easy question to answer. There's not very much work to have to do. When we look at your equation, remember that your y-intercept is the b value, which you want to pay attention to your signs. Our b value is negative 5. And if you come over and look at the graph, your y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which is right here, which is positive 1. Which one is larger? Again, hopefully you can answer that pretty easily. It is 1, which means B has the larger y-intercept. The graph has the larger y-intercept. And then the last question here compares and asks you which one has the greater y value for x equals 2. So for your equation, you need to plug in your x value in for x. So x is 2 in this case. So we are going to do 3 times 2 minus 5. And if you need to, once again, you can use your brains or you can use calculator, whichever one you prefer or is easier for you. 3 times 2 minus 5 gives you 1. And then for the graph, we just need to come over and we need to look at where is it located. So if we come over here to x is 2, we go up and find the graph. We get our point right there. Our y value is 5. Which one is greater? 5 is greater than 1, which means B is our answer.